JKRowling is back in the news and talking about women's equality and particularly about the trans issue and criticising Annalise Dodds, the newly appointed Minister for Women and Equalities, over her past remarks about gender, and particularly over an interview she gave on Radio 4. And Rowling, known for her contentious views on transgender issues, highlighted this programme from 2022 where Dodd suggested that the definition of a woman varies by legal context. She, quote, prevaricated. And Rowling found these comments nonsensical and indicative of Labour's stance on women's rights, which she feels has been neglected. And Dodds, while serving as shadow Women and Equalities Secretary, advocated for the modernisation of the Gender Recognition Act to streamline and simplify the process for changing gender. This position aligns with Labour's broader commitment to supporting both trans people and women amidst criticisms of the current or the last government's approach. And of course of the Scottish Government's approach. And the appointment has sparked debate, given the coalition of campaign groups calling for a dedicated Secretary of State for Women and Girls. They argue that a bolt-on ministerial role lacks the necessary influence to effect meaningful change for women and girls facing significant adversity. And it's she says, we know women and girls deserve better. A fully fledged, dedicated Secretary of State is what we'll continue to argue for. We look forward to working with the new government to achieve this. And it's, I think, rather than thinking of a particular Secretary of State who is advocating for women, this should be a principle that runs through the entire government, rather like truth. Rather like honesty, rather like a commitment to equality in general. And so whether somebody is a lead minister or a junior minister, it doesn't really matter. J.K. Rowling should be the first to promote the idea of independence or agency, and the idea that we are responsible for ourselves and also for one another. And therefore, the issue of safe spaces, the issue of safety, the issue of autonomy is so important. The idea about whether or not, at what stage one should intervene medically is another question, and is an important question. And we need to guard and secure childhood. But the broader question is about security, autonomy, and the need we must encourage in our society to preserve people's agency so that people do not feel that they are stripped of their ability to take control of their own environment, to take control of their own lives. We must have that freedom. And so much of our 21st century society strips us of our agency, of our autonomy. And this can be by bullying. This can be by social media. This can be by the controls of the broader society, the controls of the big institutions, the banks, the NHS, the systems of local government, which are increasingly inflexible and increasingly invasive. And if you are caught up in that process, you feel hopeless, helpless, and lost. And nobody should be in that position. In J.K. Rowling's language, you feel oppressed by a dementor. And as for the issue of who is and who is not legally recognized as a woman, I think this does come down to a practical consideration of context. And it comes down specifically to spaces, and spaces which are safe. And I don't understand why it's so difficult to ensure that there are safe spaces for women, there are safe spaces for trans people, there are safe spaces for all people. Safety is part of the mission of government and the mission of the law to ensure that we have a healthy and dynamic society. Safety is our first priority. Safety and access. And I can only reflect, and I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about, I can only reflect on my experience of being in an NHS ward, and I was back there because of mistakes made by the NHS in not following up what they promised to do, and therefore botching my cancer treatment by not consulting the haemophilia department in Oxford, which they had promised to do, and they didn't. So a week after my surgery, I was back in hospital bleeding badly. And during that time, there was a person brought into the ward where I was stationed who was chained to the bed, who was in handcuffs, and was making the most enormous noise and swearing badly. And I was genuinely frightened. And when I spoke about this, I wasn't the first to speak about this. The person who was in the bed immediately next to me complained, and I thought I should lend weight to their complaint. And the solution that was proposed was that the two of us should be moved into separate rooms, and if they were available. The solution that should have been given was that the individual who was making so much noise and who was chained to the bed should have been moved into a separate room. But we shouldn't be in that position when there are so many rooms in hospitals which are filled with bureaucratic staff who don't do their work properly and who fail in the administration. We should be removing them and using those rooms, and we should be, we need a healthier, not only a healthier hospital system, we need a healthier understanding of equality in general. I was also talking a few days ago to a lady who was giving birth in a hospital. I think it was the same hospital, and a very noisy couple who were again shouting and cursing while with a new baby. And the person I was speaking to was very worried about her baby being exposed to these words and this noise. And again, rather than offering to take the shouty couple and put them in a room of their own, there was prevarication about telling them to be quiet, and we shouldn't be in this position. We shouldn't be in this position. We need safe spaces. And I don't think our society understands the concept of safe spaces. And that is the problem. We need a greater debate about safety and about intimidation. And the accommodation of women and trans people is part of that debate about safety. But it's a bigger debate. And until we have that debate, we're not going to solve the problem. And we're certainly not going to deal with the issues which JKRowling brings up. It's not about self-definition. It's not about medical definition. It's not about legal definition. It's about feeling safe.